Do you think we're ready to roll?
Sure. Do you want to hide the little hide bar on the bottom just to, to make it big?
Okay.
There you go.
Good morning, everyone. We're here for implementing high quality CS in our schools. I want to talk to you a little bit about leadership and developing programs to serve our schools as we implement the New York State Computer Science and Digital Fluency Standards. I'm Lisa Blank. I'm the Director of STEM Programs for Watertown City School District.
I'm Laurie Guyon. I'm the Coordinator for Model Schools at Washington, Saratoga, Warren, Hamilton, and Essex BOCES.
And I'm Cameron Fadjo. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Services with the Pleasantville School District.
So why do we have these standards and why do they matter? We want to talk a little bit first about where we are in the implementation and then proceed from there.
Yes, if you want to in the chat, tell us where you are. Are you just starting out with the implementation, or are you already trying it out in your classroom? So if you could take a moment and just tell us in the chat, that would be great. I see a couple just starting outs coming in. Evaluating for implementation, starting. Yeah, it looks like most of us are just starting out thinking about how to implementing some of the standards, have computer science evaluating what we already do and what we need to do. That's excellent that you're taking a peek at that. Implementing full mapping for K-5 and then 6 through 12 next summer. That sounds great. So you're already starting to think about it. Hello, Kristen. And work is being done by teachers, but we don't hear anything from admin yet. So, okay, that's, it's coming. It just isn't there yet.
I think one of the challenges, Laurie, is that as I talk to administrators, and Cameron can probably fill in a little here, there's so much on the plates of administrators right now. And as we deal with so many challenges with the social and emotional learning needs of our students and staff, there are challenges with that. It's a priority, but in a list of many priorities, it can fall down. And so our advocacy is so important.
Definitely. It looks like some schools have some programs already, but maybe not K-8. Hello, Danielle. It looks like you're raising awareness, that's for sure. Aligning to current curriculum maps, which is great at the middle school and high school, and then embedded into library maps. And we do see that often, that library is taking a big part of these standards. We've done, out of my BOCES, we did full alignment between the library standards and these standards, and there is a lot of overlap. So that's a great place to put them for sure. Yeah.
One of the concerns I have, though, there, Laurie, is that sometimes I think too much is placed upon our library media specialists. And it's just something to be keeping in mind as we think through implementation.
Absolutely. If your students only see the librarian once every 6 days, that's not going to be enough. But it is a good place to start to think about where to implement and absolutely get some support.
And I will jump in and make a distinction between having curricula, running classes, and thinking about the implementation of the standards. And I'll just speak from my own personal experience. So in Pleasantville, we've been running, we've had technology classes, then we moved into having coding classes and some emphasis on CS. Only recently, with the emergence of the standards, did we start to have targeted conversations around the alignment between what the standards articulate and our classroom practice. And I think that's a really strong, it's wonderful to have the standards to be able to drive that conversation. Because until then, what you're talking about in terms of classroom outcomes are largely sort of focused around what's being taught in the curriculum. And if you have an excellent curriculum, then you're going to have some nice targets for those outcomes. The standards help do that. They start to make that bridge and articulation more explicit. And I will say, maybe for each of us who are presenting, we should also say where our districts are for implementation. I know, Laurie, you're at the BOCES, so you can give kind of a range. I will say in Pleasantville, we're just a little bit beyond just starting out in terms of implementation of the standards.
And Cameron, I would have to say in Watertown, we're very much the same. Again, it's those multiple priorities of the district that seem to be weighing a bit heavily on our ability to move things forward at a rate that some of us would like, I guess. We have had, a fair amount of professional learning and a lot of teachers leading the way. But in terms of that equity and access for all of our students to consistent implementation of the standards, we're not there yet.
Can I take us on a slight detour for a second and Laurie, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
I'm wondering if we can invite our attendees to just give their name and their role and where they're joining us from, just so we can get a sense of the room.
Absolutely. Yeah. And while you're doing that, I'll kind of talk about our BOCES. We have 31 school districts. And I would say that if I polled all 31, we'd get 31 different answers as far as where they are with the standards. Some have done alignment. A lot have brought in the librarians, the multimedia specialists to do some of that information or like look at the way it would fit. Some districts have brought it to certain groups, but not to the individual teacher level. Some are looking at how they're going to cover them, whether it's going to be a special or it's going to be something that's in each classroom. So I would say we're pretty varied in our districts. I don't think any of them are in full implementation mode, which is, would be very surprising at this point. But a lot of them are starting to build that capacity, which is exactly where we're supposed to be.
And I would say one of the things that the state did that was really smart, and I'm not sure that everybody really understood the purpose of those Smart Start grants at the very beginning, but they really are building a variety of models for practices that we can look at and replicate in our districts.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I just want to thank everybody for taking time on your Saturday morning. And it's nice to see a range of attendees. We have directors, we have teachers. Everybody's really working towards that same target. So that's really helpful.
So as we look at the standards and we think about the goals and why we want to implement them, there are a variety of key points that really stand out. One of the things we see in working with our teachers is that a lot of the content of the standards is being implemented in a variety of ways. And some of those are in the habits of practice, day-to-day behaviors, password security, logging in, logging out, just some very simple behavioral things. The standards are graduation competencies for all students. We heard yesterday, and for those of you who weren't able to attend yesterday, we heard a lot about how the implementation is up to the districts and that we really can turn to and rely on the assets and opportunities within our own communities to support their implementation, which is a benefit to us. I think it makes the learning experiences more valuable to our students. It's for all grade levels and across all disciplines. And our goal is to create future-ready citizens, not just the workforce, but also having informed think about the voting decisions. As I think about the impact of AI and machine learning and various things in the future, we need our citizens to be well informed and aware and ready to make wise decisions. Any other thoughts here from our group?
Sure. Yeah. When we talk about that future ready citizens, the three of us were discussing that a lot, is thinking about what our students need. And really, and we heard this several times yesterday in the presentations I sat in on, there are skills that we all need to be a member of our society because we have this digital presence. And so we know that there's certain skills that we need no matter what job we're in, and just, those normal life skills that you need just to kind of support what you're doing on a daily basis.
And I think it's also worth noting the breadth of what that entails. And I'll speak again from my own experience, just thinking through the lens of CS and the different directions and trajectories. Sometimes it can feel like you latch onto one or two avenues, and that's sort of a main focus. I know the CS for All movement has sort of shown a really big spotlight on the range of topics, a lot of the work that's been going on in many places. And I'm I'm thinking of New York City and the work that I know and have done in the past there, is just what this means for all of our students. And I know, Lisa, we've had this conversation about your region and talking about what CS means for the community up in the North Country and what that looks like as an outcome. So I think Future Ready really has a wide lens, and it does reflect the communities and the schools that we're in. And so down in Lower Hudson, where I am, it's going to look a little bit different than for everybody else on the call in this meeting. So
yeah, one of the funny things about being in New York State, and I'm from out of state, so everybody thinks New York City when they think New York State, and the North Country is far from that. I live 4 miles from the border with Canada and have, you know, all kinds of open territory around me. It's a totally different world. So it's interesting.
Definitely. And I've talked about this in some other sessions that I've done. Right now we have a new job, career set. We have always had blue collar and white collar, but now we have what are considered new collar jobs. And these are opportunities that come from entrepreneurship, from a lot of startups. It's a lot of times students that are starting something in high school even, and pursuing different avenues from there. You'll see that a lot. Like I know a lot of us use GimKit. That was a student project. He developed that as a passion project, and now a lot of us use it in our schools. Or I had a gentleman who came and taught our BOCES how to use these drones, and he said by the time he graduated high school, he was already making multiple millions of dollars because he was so good at flying the drones. He had his pilot license, and he was able to start his own business as he graduated high school. So I think we're starting to see the shift in what is, a potential. Yeah, David put, we're prepping for our students for jobs that don't exist yet. Yeah, if you asked me, actually, I don't know if all of us on the panel feel this way, but if you asked me when I was in elementary or middle or even high school that I'd be teaching anything to do with technology, it never would have occurred to me that was even an option. So yeah, we're all kind of feeling that we're in these jobs and roles and teaching these skills that we never thought we'd have to bring into our classrooms.
I completely agree, Laurie. So many of the things I do are not what I would have thought as a 16 to 18-year-old self that I would be doing now, but it's good. I love what I do. It's a lot of fun, and I'm thankful for the opportunities, for sure.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump into common barriers. And here we're kind of looking at the things that some of you have already started to put into the chat, and go ahead and continue to do that. Tell us what are the barriers for us rolling these standards into your classroom, and hopefully we'll hit on a couple of them. But before we show the list that we've put together based on conversations we've had in our districts, tell us in the chat, what are some barriers that you're seeing to getting these rolled out into your districts?
And I just saw Alicia's comment in the chat. Alicia, I'm from Wisconsin as well, so we've got to connect. These heads all the way.
Yeah. So I'm seeing barriers of qualified professionals, graduation requirements, teacher pushback, technology for all. Teachers feeling they don't have time. Absolutely. Time is a big one, right? Where to fit it in. Students are natives to computer science, which, that could be a big debate that we could have as well. That could be a whole other session on, are they truly digital natives, or are they just consumers versus creators? And we could go on for days on that one. That's a good one, Alicia.
That's a very good one.
Yeah, graduation rates. Yeah, absolutely.
So should we reveal?
Yeah, consumers versus creators. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a big one. Is we want our students to be using technology in ways that they are, driving their mission, their vision, they're spreading positivity and kindness, right? Sometimes it's okay to consume, but we really want that them to be creators in this digital world. Yeah, let's
reveal
our list.
So, Cameron, we're glad you're back.
We lost you for a second.
Yeah. We're reflecting upon our own experiences as we interacted with districts, or including our own in the case of me and Cameron. And this is what we thought were really the strong barriers that we were hearing. The one more thing, I can't just do one more thing. Is this really essential for all students? Who's responsible for it? Where do they fit? the implementation, high school versus middle school versus elementary school, what does it look like? And it all culminates in this idea of a significant culture change. And I guess we could pick up and start with any one of these in terms of that culture change, and every one of these points that we're making reflects that need to kind of see our world a little bit differently than when we've been seeing it. You know, I think about our elementary teachers, and they have their days divided up in so many minutes for math, so many minutes for ELAs. You know, everything's just so compartmentalized that it makes it really hard to think about where things fit.
Yeah.
How about your experiences?
I was going to add on to that too with the one more thing. I hear this a lot when I do any kind of training on these standards. And yesterday I sat in on Emmanuel's one about the do's and don'ts of the rollout. And it was interesting because I often say, you're already doing some of the things that computational thinking are, or you're already doing some digital citizenship. And he made a good point that yes, you might already be doing it, but that doesn't mean you're covering all the standards, that there may be a different level or a different lens that you have to bring to it. And it was a really interesting one. So if you have a chance to go back and watch, his session was excellent yesterday. But there is some overlap where you can start to say, I do this lesson, how can I do it through the lens of computer science? Or how can I make sure that I'm opening up these opportunities or bringing in experts if you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself. And I think it's also a shift in how you teach. You don't have to be the expert in the room when it comes to rolling out these standards. And I know Lisa and Cameron probably have had these experiences too, where we're doing something in a classroom with students and we're saying, we don't know the technology, great yet. Let's figure it out together. The first year I did code.org, I had never coded before, other than maybe some flow charts I did in middle school years and years ago. So it was opening up those opportunities and letting our students kind of drive which direction it was going. And we can learn so much from our students. So I think that one more thing, if you take that step back and you think of like those pockets of time or those slight shifts in what we're doing, we might be able to overcome that barrier to some extent. Obviously, there's always going to be some issues there as well. Oh, we lost Cameron again.
Yeah. One of the things I see in the chat is this concern about high school. I know the K-8, and even looking at the Smart Start implementation plans, the focus has been on K-8. And high school, it does get a little bit more challenging with the courses, the specific computer science courses. We heard yesterday that, sorry, I'm getting some feedback on my laptop.
Yeah.
Can you hear it?
You want to mute when you're not. I think it might be from you a little bit when you're not talking, and then
I'm going to try to deal with that. Just a second. If you want to continue.
I think if we mute, you're fine, Lisa. So you can start again.
Okay. I'm hearing it again now, but hopefully it'll be okay. But is it bad on your end?
As long as Cameron stays muted, it's good. So.
The other thing I can do is turn down my volume here. Maybe. Try that quick and see if that makes a difference.
Yeah, and you were addressing the in the chat the comments about high school.
Yeah, the high school courses are not right now. There's no plan from the state to require any high school courses for graduation, but districts could. That issue of local implementation decisions is really important. So that's something that coming together with your district leaders and educators need to make decisions as to what does this look like for my district or for our district collectively, because the state's not giving us answers on what that's going to look like. And it makes a lot of sense. If we're looking at an assets-based implementation plan, really are looking at what's best going to serve the students in our community in the setting that we are in, meeting, the goal is to meet the needs of the students. And again, that's a culture change piece. I think about the Regents exams, and so much of that content is driven by the assessments. This is not driven by an assessment. It makes it a very different piece of education to be implemented as compared to the other standards efforts that we have dealt with. When I hear math standards, people's hearts start to sink because, there have been so many different versions of standards over the last 20 years that, people start to get stressed. And the good thing is I don't see these standards as causing stress. The word standards does, but when teachers actually see them, they start to see, okay, I can breathe a little bit because these aren't outside the realm, especially at the elementary level. These are things that I'm comfortable with, and I can pretty easily adjust my teaching to make it work with what I do. And a lot of them are being done, but maybe not with the language of computer science.
Yeah, as you're thinking about the barriers and you're thinking about that culture change, I think Lisa's spot on. It's that language. We need to build that common language, and it could start with something simple like I taught 6th grade English for many years, and we didn't edit our essays; we debugged our essays. It's a slight shift in the comment, but it really helps students see the purpose. They know that if they write a line of code and the computer can't understand it, they need to debug that code to make sure it works for the computer. If they're writing an essay and the sentence doesn't make sense for the reader, then they need to rewrite or edit that sentence to make sure that the reader understands what they're trying to say. There's those similarities between the two. I know in my classroom, I always had the writing out, how to write an essay poster. We all probably had it, like the writing process. And then next to it, I had the engineering process so that you could see that correlation between, the writing and the engineering process, and see those connections so that we can see, why it's important to do the things we're having them do. It's not like every student is going to leave our classrooms and be a writer, but we know that there's certain skills that they need to be a member of our society and to be able to communicate. And it really is that kind of language we have to start to think about in our classrooms to help with that culture change as well.
I like Thomas's comment. We can debug a math problem too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then in kindergarten, today's algorithm is you start to introduce them to those big words. They love big words when they're younger. If a 2nd grader can name all the dinosaurs, they can absolutely use the word algorithm. So definitely a good thing there as well.
I wholeheartedly agree. You see the enthusiasm and excitement when kids say their big words. And sometimes people think they're not capable. Kids are capable. They get excited about it.
Yeah. Good point, Jocelyn. She said that it's the opposite is also true. In computer science class, procedure equals a paragraph. Absolutely.
Yep. Good. Whoops, I went backwards somehow.
Let me go forward. You hit the forward arrow. There you go.
So we want to next look at some strategies and models because we've seen ways to overcome some of these barriers. But again, we're dealing with culture change as we look at these strategies and models.
So we're going to deep dive into the ones you see on your screen. We're just kind of giving you an update as far as this is the list that we're thinking about. We're going to talk a little bit about integrated learning, transdisciplinary learning, project or problem-based learning, and then where to fit them in our specials, which I know somebody said earlier, even if New York State allowed computer science or art and music, or I would say computer science in art and music would be a great way to do it. My son goes to RIT and they have really cool programs where they look at the engineering of glass blowing. Like there's nothing wrong with thinking of where does computer science fit in art. My nephew is doing that as a major. He's doing the construction of the characters in a game. So absolutely, we can tie in the computer science to art and music.
I think the possibilities are endless.
That's for sure.
So first thing I want to talk about a little bit is integrated learning. And I've got that happy globe bouncing there for a reason. It's kind of out of the theme of the slides. But one of the things moving in from out of state that somewhat frustrated me was the New York State Regents exams. I know they do bring about quality. There's, some consistency in what's being taught across the state, but it has driven a very siloed approach to learning. And it makes it really difficult. I think that's part of the reason why we have that conversation at the high school level is, how do these standards fit when I have all this content that I have to cover already in my high school Regents class? It creates that culture of silos, and even that amount of time, the minutes in ELA, minutes in math, etc., at the elementary level, that also creates those silos. And what we're looking at with some of these approaches is moving from the silos into this really rich real world driven approach that really is much more student centered. And I guess the happiness might represent the joy that we see on the faces of our students when they start solving and working on problems that matter to them. And in integrated learning approaches, you've got much more flexibility to do that.
I like David's comment. He said, if computer science can be integrated, maybe state ed should be integrating computer science into the Regents exams. I know we've talked about that, even in the elementary, we don't want another test on these standards, but why couldn't a question on the state ELA third grade exam be about computer science, and they have to do the reading comprehension that they typically would have to do on that paragraph or essay or poem, whatever it happens to be. There are ways that could be integrated that, would be great if state ed could pull that together, and that could happen. That's for sure.
And data science related questions on state math exams, all the way through the grades. I mean, that would be great. I think that'd be a really good approach, David, to make it a more holistic exam rather than, move the exams from being siloed into maybe being a little more real world and holistic as well. Yeah, so learning and testing. I like that. So I really love learning that's not compartmentalized. So this idea of transdisciplinary learning, moving the learning from the strictly disciplinary approach to the interdisciplinary and eventually to the transdisciplinary. And what happens with transdisciplinary is that the content's explored within the context of the questions being asked. So for example, in a project, students might not just rely on, let's say if the blue is math, the yellow is ELA, and the red is social studies. That would be still an interdisciplinary approach, but a problem might lead them to draw on resources from their community. For example, we had a project-based learning project where students had to talk to code officers in the town to find out what was possible and what was not possible in regard to a construction project. That definitely takes them outside the normal disciplinary realms and puts them into seeking answers to questions outside of what might be the typical in our schools. And what it does is it creates students who are really well-rounded and versed in problem solving, and they know how to use resources at their disposal. So I'm really really largely in favor of moving toward the transdisciplinary approach. But I realize that, right now when we're looking at computer science for most teachers, we're looking at an interdisciplinary approach. How does computer science fit within math? How does it fit within social studies or ELA? But in the context of rich problem solving, it's really good to move it to a broader view. And that gives, like I said, a lot of opportunity to explore problems that matter to kids.
Welcome back, Cameron. So the next way that we thought about how you can integrate these standards is through project or problem-based learning. And I just put a quick graphic on here just to kind of remind you, the big hits when you're thinking about doing this type of learning. And just to give you an example of how it's being done, we have one district that I'm fortunate enough to work with that has in their 6th grade a 10-week project-based learning class. So every 6th grader for 10 weeks, that's what they do. And this summer we revamped that program to meet these standards, to really align them, with the concepts that we're thinking about and what we want them to know about computer science and digital fluency. And so we're bringing different activities into the classroom. So for example, October is Cybersecurity Month, Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So for this month, they're going to be doing lessons about ethical hacking and cyberbullying and password protection. We have a cybersecurity takeover day that we're going to have the students doing activities with Spheros, and they're going to be using MadLearn. I know I saw Alethea in here earlier. I don't know if she's on this session now, but she definitely was the first one. Her program is great where she has these apps that you can do a game called App Wars, and you look at the 2 different apps and you look at the privacy policies and the way that it's built and whether it's accessible, and you think about the design of the apps as an activity. We're going to be doing where the students are going to try to write a good password and see how many seconds it takes for the Sphero to decode their password using just some basic coding that is, very basic for them in that they don't have to change a lot in an already built platform. So the entire month is going to be based on these types of activities. We have a choice board using about ethical hacking, where we're going to have the students practice different skills as they navigate the board. So it's going to be a full month of activities, with one day where the entire day is going to be dedicated to just cybersecurity. Yeah, I'm happy to throw those in the chat for you, just so you can see some of the things that we're doing. But definitely is a school that's really thinking about how to integrate them into the classroom. So they're going to learn the skills within those 10 weeks, but then it's going to be integrated into other classes moving forward.
And those projects really get at some of those transdisciplinary ideas, where you draw on a wealth of resources beyond the curriculum to solve problems. Really great strategies.
Yeah, and the school was Queensbury Union Free School District. If you follow Osmo on social media, they just did a video about the school on a coding project they did with students coming into kindergarten this summer. It was great.
And another area that's really growing and worth emphasizing is thinking about all of the different special classes and where that's creating opportunity and continued growth. And I know a lot of us here have either had these sorts of electives, or you'll fold in a unit, like we were just talking, Laurie was talking about project-based learning, and this interdisciplinary work. I think that's part of the reality. I'm thinking back to I presented yesterday with one of our high school leads on how we rolled out our program in Pleasantville. And our program started with a couple of core classes plus some electives that reflected the interest of the students and getting that student voice, specifically at the high school level, right? And oftentimes these different classes begin as the interest of a handful of students. Sometimes they're electives, and then they kind of find their way into the curriculum over time. So, I know for us in Pleasantville, we went from an AP class and 2 half-semester courses to now fully implementing a project lead the way sequence, which includes intro to CS, APCSP, APCSA, and a cybersecurity course, and really diving into that. So that's part of our progression. And we've done some mobile app development electives in our schools as well on the side. So, I mean, everybody here can kind of share those experiences and examples. I think that's another major dimension of what this will look like and continue to look like over time.
Cameron, I liked how you mentioned something about some programs, like maybe some out-of-school programs leading to the development of these special classes, and definitely see a lot of that. Don't forget that your out-of-school activity time or clubs, the club activities might provide opportunities to kind of kick off some of these ideas that will develop into full-blown classes in the future. It's a great strategy. So one of the things that I think is really important to think about as we think about designing learning experiences for our students is that deep learning is understanding and applying what is being taught, not just memorizing it. As I think about all the assessments, we're so focused on making sure they get these questions right. But what we really want is for students to think more about the 6 C's. So this deep learning is made up of what we call the 6 C's: critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, character development, and citizenship. And all of these approaches that we've been sharing with you really get at those 6 C's and helping to develop really well-rounded students with future-ready skills.
So we wanted to take a peek, and I know some of the other sessions have covered this as well, as far as participation in computer science on a more nationwide view. And this was the information from code.org about who has access to and who is participating in computer science. So you can see the chart that, almost 60% of the people that participate in computer science are white, and then you can see the breakdown from there. I put the link in this slide deck to the article about why we need to start to think about computer science. So if you have some districts that maybe are, or some teachers that are maybe not seeing the why yet, this article really talks about why it's super important for us to integrate computer science into our classroom. So I thought that was a really good one to share with you, as far as it's from Tech and Learning. They do some really great, or from, it's
District
from
Administration.
Not Tech and Learning.
Yeah, that's okay. Those are two great resources that we use a lot, right?
Yes, they are. But this one's from District Administration, and really breaks down the percentages and why it needs to be important.
And I thought that 5.6% of high school students are enrolled in a computer science course. I'm wondering if that's the foundational courses, but I believe it is the foundational CS courses at the high school level. That's 5.6% of students nationally. That's kind of, to me, that's troubling.
Yeah, and those of us that are on this panel, we all helped out with that cybersecurity research out of Boise State, and we found that we were one of less than a handful, or about a handful, of states that actually require or have standards for cybersecurity, K5 or K8. I don't remember exactly where the breakdown was, but there are very few that actually take this as something that students should be learning in kindergarten. But we teach students how to properly hold a pencil, how to line up, how to behave in a society in kindergarten. We need to teach them how to behave online as well, because you've seen it. Go out to dinner one night, and at a family restaurant, and you'll see students with devices, or children with devices in their hands. We need to be teaching those skills as early as possible to help them navigate everything that's going on in the digital world.
Yeah, and that gets back to that idea of habits of practice. I mean, really, so much of what we need to do are those basic habits, helping kids learn good, healthy habits.
Yeah, and Common Sense Education and the National Pediatrics group both have really good contracts for the littles that you can build between the parents and their children on digital use, and they're great conversation starters, great resources for parents. The Culture of Cybersecurity website has some great resources, again, for students and for parents when you're thinking about that use. So these images that you see on your screen now these are also from the code.org one, correct, Lisa?
Yeah, the code.org report, and the link is in the lower right corner. These are all national level statistics, and I think it's really important to take a look at New York and realize that we're behind our neighboring states in terms of access for our students to foundational computer science. There are a couple of states behind us, but we're not faring so well. And that advocacy piece of what we do is so important. That's why I think Laurie and Cameron and I and so many others have volunteered a lot of hours to help this move forward. We also see challenges with access by race and ethnicity, free and reduced lunch, geography. Those are all things. While access is increasing, we're still seeing some pretty tremendous barriers there. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I would encourage you to go and look at that data, because I think it's very compelling to really stay involved and be active in advocating for computer science education for our students.
And this is just more of that report. You can see New York by the numbers. We have almost 29,000 computing jobs that open each month, but we only graduated in 2019, a little less than 7,000 students. We know that we need to expose our students. If you ask, there's a great video from, I want to say it's from like IBM, where they interviewed some of the big companies like IBM and Facebook and different places like that, to say the need for cybersecurity, employees, people that have the skills. I know I have two children of my own. I'm requiring them both to take a cybersecurity class in college. My daughter did last semester, learned a lot. But I think these are the skills that they need as a life skill, but it also opens up a lot of opportunity. You can see the average salary. I know at one point they were saying that New York State has the highest average salary for computer science and cybersecurity positions. I don't know if that's still the case, but I know that it was there for quite some time. So we have to think about how we can open up these opportunities for our students.
So Laurie, one of the things as I think about education is we should be opening doors to opportunity, not closing them. By providing these opportunities to kids, we're opening the doors to those opportunities. Quick pitch for cyber.org on the cybersecurity. They've got family nights through the month of October. If you haven't seen that, I can share that later. But a good opportunity for helping teach cybersecurity and get family awareness as well.
Yeah, when I go into that 6th grade class with and we talk about ethical hacking, students are like, "Wait, that's a job?" You know, like they can actually do this. Like they're hooked and they're excited and they want to learn. I think it's definitely something we want to expose our students to. If they don't know that that's a career choice, you know, they may not think about it when they get to the college level. And a lot of colleges have those exploratory computer science classes that first semester because students don't know what they can do with it. They just know maybe they like it because they've been exposed to something in the high school. So why not showcase and you know, where they can go with these types of jobs?
And Laurie, one thing that'd be interesting is asset mapping within our communities to understand where those job opportunities are, because very often our students and teachers don't know that we might have cybersecurity firms in our backyard. We actually happen to have one in Watertown that employs students and provides internships, and they can engage in ethical hacking. But you might not know that if that individual leading that company didn't reach out to us to get students.
Absolutely. If you go to, I'm sorry, go ahead, Cameron.
I was just going to jump in. Lisa, I'm wondering if you could just go back to the last slide.
Sure.
Because I'm just thinking about our audience and, you know, everybody who's here who's really trying to push and make all of this happen. And I think, you know, I'm thinking about Leanne's keynote from yesterday about having sort of this asset-based approach. Like you were mentioning, Lisa, you know, there's internships in town and everything. I think everybody here is on the side of, yes, we want to do this and we want to do more. And I think it might feel a little bit discouraging to look at these numbers and sort of say, well, I'm doing what I can, but I can't move every needle, right? You know what I mean? I think that's just one of those challenges. So I think one sort of call to action that we might flag for our audience is just sort of connecting with your neighbors in your region. I mean, Laurie does this all the time through BOCES and everything, right? I think it's just that visibility. And it was something that was mentioned earlier about, well, where are priorities in the district? And Lisa hit it spot on. Districts have a ton of priorities, changing priorities, and those priorities can reflect things that are happening in the world at large, in the state at large, in the community at large, and everything in between and within the schools. So that's all to say, just kind of tap your neighbor in your region.
Yeah,
you know,
I think individually it can seem overwhelming, but collectively we can do a lot. So this summit actually dates back to coming out of writing and reviewing the standards. Cameron reached out and brought together a bunch of educators just to start looking at ideas for how to create resources to support our educators. And that group grew to 50 or so educators, maybe more.
It was over 100.
Over 100 by the time all is said and done, that just purely volunteered time because they value this and they see it as being so important. And that's led to this summit. Purely volunteer efforts, kind of a big deal. So individually, we probably couldn't do much, but collectively, a lot has been accomplished and there's a lot to be said for that. Thank you, Cameron.
Definitely.
Okay, so resources.
Yeah, there's one that you went the other way.
I went backwards. Sorry about that.
There was another resource that's not on here that when you were talking made me think of it. There's a website called All Tech is Human, and there's David. Oh, I can't remember it's Polgar. There's David Allen, maybe Polgar. He has the website that All Tech is Human, but there's a job board on there that's really interesting to showcase to your middle school and high school, students, because it gives the titles of different cybersecurity and computer science jobs. And, there's data mining and, facial recognition jobs and all these different things that they may not realize are actual job titles. And they are actually real jobs that are being posted there, because the All Tech is Human site is pulling all of different industry leaders to say we need to think about the ethical design of what we're building in our computing. So it has some really great resources, and kids love to look at the titles and see what's out there. So it's a great website to check out.
That's interesting. It kind of makes me think Liz Gallo, rather than doing a typical engineering design cycle, she does a human-centered design, so that what you're talking about kind of links into that idea as well. It's very interesting. I look forward to checking out the site. So again, culmination of, shouldn't say culmination because it's not done. Culmination makes things sound done, but this came to fruition because of the volunteer efforts of this group. 10 people sitting around a table at Nightskate. Tom happened to have a CSForNY. He happened to have rights to the name for the website. He had paid for the access already. So here we are. This site hosts pretty much everything computer science for New York State. Links to everything that you would want. So if you ever are wondering where to go, this is always a great starting point. It contains slide decks from last year's computer science sessions. It has access to Laurie's books that she created in Book Creator to help teachers with implementing the standards. The resources from NICEAD, the card deck, the coaching tool deck. Well, we'll show you those. We're getting there, right? But all these things are linked out through this site, and it will continue to be a growing site to support computer science in New York State. Oops, and I go back again. Nobody's going to put me in charge of this again.
Just use the arrows on your keyboard. It'll make it easier.
Okay. I'm not used to presenting from Canva, so this is a little bit different. So this is really a useful tool for setting the stage for strategic planning in your school district, for establishing priorities. If you haven't done script training, you can do a full-blown few-day, I think it's a 3-day session. Cameron, has your district done script?
We have not done script, but it is by far the sort of best organized approach for a district to engage in this work. And I think that's really worth emphasizing. And I'm just looking at the chat, and Jocelyn makes a point about a lot of pent up frustration about the slowness of the pace of this work. And I think that's going to change. It's changing now. I mean, we're having this summit, which is clearly a signal that we're moving in the right direction as a state to start to address some of these major gaps. At the district level, it can kind of be in the hands of your leaders at the building level, at the district level, with your community. And I think that's just part of what makes this work so rewarding, and yet it can be a little bit challenging because there's so many stakeholders that need to come to the table. Script is a way to bring that work together.
The past 2 years have made that bringing everybody to the table particularly challenging. So I think part of the frustration comes from the circumstances we've been in. But if you are working with your districts, or you're a leader in a district, you're looking to move computer science forward, Script just provides a really nice framework for having those conversations to establish your priorities as a district. There's also a survey tool on there that helps you in a shorter time frame look at what the values are within your district as you kick off any planning. So highly recommend the use of Script and the tool that's available through the website, the survey tool.
Yeah, we are at the end of our time. So if you just want to share what's on those last couple slides, we can put the link to it into the chat too.
So the CS Coaching Toolkit provides, tips and tools, resources for coaching that can really be used in any area. So I recommend that if you could share those with any instructional coach, doesn't have to be just computer science. Activities, if you haven't checked out these books, Laurie, you can describe.
Yeah, and you can open them with the link too if you click on the.
Does it open right here? Okay.
Yeah, these are just activity books of ideas for each of the standards. You know, they're not fully like embedded into what you're already doing. A lot of them are more standalone activities, but they're certainly available for you. And if you have activities you'd like me to add to the books, my information is in the book. Just reach out. I'm happy to add you as an author, because we're just trying to make these as a resource to kind of make it easier for all of us to be able to implement them in our classrooms.
It just gives you a little bit of an idea. There is a lot there for you. Whoops, I'm trying to get back to the right slide.
And then the last slide we do have a computer science and digital fluency train the trainer session coming up with NiceGate on December 13th and 14th. That one is going to be in Albany. So if that's not too far away for you, that's a different.
I'm having a problem here getting back to the right one.
Just click the share button. No, you're in the right one now. Just hit the share button.
Am I? Okay.
Yeah.
It didn't look great to me.
Yeah. So here, you'll see those are the activity books, and then the next was the standards, right? And then obviously all of these activities and resources, and there'll be tons of sessions at the NiceGate annual conference in November. All of them had to align to one of the concept strands, so there'll definitely be lots of resources for you there. All right, we don't have time for Q&A. We have to say goodbye, but if you have any questions, please reach out.
Feel free to reach out.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
We didn't put that. Can you put that one as a link in the chat? Cameron put a different one in.
I put in a different one.
Yeah.
If you want to put in the.
This link.
So yeah, click share and then grab the link. Yeah, copy link.
There's the copy link. There it is. I got it here.
Thanks so much.
Why is there a G in front of it? Isn't that weird?
And yeah, I think
let's try that again. Did it just? There we go. Trying it again.
There you go. That one worked.
I don't know how I got a G in there. I've got a new laptop and not. So yeah, lots of stuff going on here.
Yeah. Yeah, Alicia, if you need something, just reach out and tell us what you need. Yeah,
we're all happy to help.
Mm-hmm.
And my laptop decided to run a software update in the middle of the presentation. So sorry about that.
Good times.
Of course it did.
Exactly.
Thanks, Kristen, for joining us. Our emails, I think that if I go back to our slide or our presentation here.
Yes, they're on the second or third slide.
Let me close this. I'll just put it right out there.
Yeah.
I put mine in the chat too, if you want to see that.
There you go. And I'll put mine in the chat too.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right.